Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk a bit about quant and what some of our models here at Upside Down Data are making of its recent price action. So what I'm showing you here is our risk model, the Upside Downside Potential Indicator, or UDPI. So what I'm showing you here is the price history of quant over time, color-coded to the output of the UDPI. So higher levels mean higher risk, lower levels mean lower risk. And you can see that this does a good job of quantifying these times when acquisition of quant has been advantageous, and also these times when distribution of quant has been very advantageous. Now, I think that's interesting about quant overall when you look at it is that really kind of ever since its inception back here through the top, the all-time high back here in late 2021, it was pretty much just in one overall bull market. You could argue there was a mini bear market right here into the March 2020 crash, but really overall it was kind of more or less just in a bull market, kind of straight up. And quant was one of those notable assets where even in 2021, when a lot of assets really crashed during the summer, some down as much as 80% or more during the summer of 21, quant was just flat. Quant really didn't do a whole lot of anything. It just went flat. It held up extremely well then, and then had a monster rally to put in its all-time high going into late 2021. So really what we saw then coming off of that was, what I might argue, or I think it's really the first bear market that quant's seen, and it's certainly the first kind of broader crypto bear market, obviously, that quant would have seen. We went all the way back down, around $80. But it's been pretty remarkable what quant has done since then. It's staged this really pretty strong reversal, and in some ways it looks like we're really setting in a higher low. And so if we just look at this from a risk perspective, and I'll flip over here to the raw output of the UDPI across time, so that's the white line, and then the yellow line is the quant price. You can see that we got all the way down to almost -4 back over here in this big drawdown that we had going into the local low back here before really taking off again. And then we went up to around this one level over here, both in this rally and then also in this rally here, kind of bounced off it both times. That's kind of acted as a ceiling actually a lot of times in quant's history. You can see that between 1 and 2 acts as a topping out point often, except for this extreme run that we got here into late 2021 into the all-time high. And so quant has now started cooling off a bit, but notably, we're down at -2, and we're still sitting well above the local low that we had back over here in June. And so this is notable, I think, that risk is really cooling off quite a bit at price levels that are quite a bit higher than we were over here. Now, obviously, we're not down by -4 anymore, but -2, but still, this is looking favorable, right? This isn't a bad thing to be doing this. In some ways, quant has been holding up a lot better than a lot of the crypto market, which is notable. And there's different reasons you could point to that. Some people might point to the fundamentals. Some people might point to narrative fit. I think one of the things that's interesting about quant is that, one of the narratives that really kind of started to gain some traction kind of at the later part of last year was the idea of interoperability. And that's, of course, where quant really, that's where it exists. Quant is all about interoperability, and especially in a more general sense, where it's trying to provide a more general interoperability solution compared to things like Cosmos or Polkadot, which are providing interoperability, but only within their own ecosystems. And so there might be some of that's going on here, that kind of one of the narratives in crypto is that we're going to need interoperability. And so that's kind of a fundamental value that's valued right now. So there's this fit with both the fundamental, aspects of quant being good technology, but then also it's something that a lot of people think we'll need. And quant kind of has a head start in that more general interoperability space. So who knows, maybe that's partly why it's ending up doing so well in this bear market when a lot of other assets really aren't, and being able to stay well above its June lows when a lot of other assets have plummeted well below. So we can also look at the short-term version. So what I was showing you here before was the long-term version of our UDPI. This is reactive to moves that play out over months to multiple months. So it's more macro in its focus in what it's reacting to. The short-term UDPI is a lot more volatile, right? It tracks shorter-term movements a lot more closely to kind of give you a short-term outlook, kind of over the next days to weeks, what is the risk profile looking like for quant. So you can see that in these runs that we got here out of the June lows and up again here more recently, we went up and almost tapped 3, up above 2.5 on the short-term UDPI both times, which again has acted as a resistance level multiple times in quant's past when we get these rallies, really only breaking above it when we're on our way up to the all-time high back in late 2021. And so this really called out those points. And actually at this peak here, when I was just watching Quant do this and looking at the short-term UDPI level, I was pretty confident that probably was going to act as at least a local high, because when you're in an overall broad bear market in crypto, when you're in a broader bear market, seeing a short-term UDPI level getting close to 3 is pretty far out there. Quant was pretty much the only asset at the time that was doing this, that was putting in such a high risk level. And in a broader crypto bear market, people are looking to take any profits they can get. And so you can imagine that people who maybe acquired Quant down here or even down here were looking to bag some profit in that rally. So really in these bear market conditions, if you start seeing short-term UDPI levels up at around 3, you'd be reasonably sure that it's probably getting towards a local top. Not to say the asset can't rally after that, but at least a local top here. And you can see that risk had already reset all the way down to -2 by here before it went up and did that. Now we're actually seeing something a little bit similar here, right? Risk had come down a little below -2. Prices started to move slowly up, but we haven't seen that explosive move to the upside yet for Quant. So we might have to wait a little bit more, right? Might need to wait for broader bullish sentiment to return to the market before that's possible. And you'll see that the short-term UDPI is actually reverting back up, which means that even though we haven't realized an extreme amount of upside yet, the model's thinking that the downside is now shifting, that it's possible we might actually have to have another leg down here. Now, what would be notable is that if we do have another leg down here, if we can set in a definitive higher low relative to the June lows, that would just be another data point suggesting that maybe Quant is trying to form a bottom here. That is trying to kind of establish a more bullish price structure coming out of this low. And again, Quant is unusual. It's one of the only crypto assets that really is showing this kind of strength coming out of these June lows, especially within the altcoin market. So right now, kind of the outlook on a risk perspective in the long term is that we have a good amount of kind of long-term upside relative to downside potential, though it is possible we could continue moving to the downside. And then the short term, we could go either way, right? We have more room to move to the upside, right? If we do another one of these rallies, I'd expect us to go probably, maybe even just tap out a similar level we've done back here. But also we could roll over here and then maybe have to set in some lows. And there what I'd be watching is where do we find that new local bottom. So the last model I want to talk about here is getting at something a bit different. This is the momentum bias indicator, or MBI. So as the name suggests, this is all about momentum. So what the MBI is trying to capture is whether or not momentum is kind of biased to the upside, where price is going to be just moving to the upside, and any kind of shorter term corrections will quickly get bought up and move back up. That's what happens when you're in these positive momentum bias areas. Whereas a negative momentum bias, that's what happens in bearish conditions or bear markets, where if you're spending a lot of time in the red, price is going to continually be dragged down. And that's what we're seeing really throughout here. This is classic bear market behavior on the MBI that we were seeing through here, where you'll get these deep dips into the red. You'll try to stage a relief rally, but then you'll get rejected right around 0 on the MBI, and then you'll go right back down for the next leg down. Now, what's really interesting about what Quant's doing right now is that it's actually setting in behavior that's more reminiscent of a bull market or a transition from between a bear market and a bull market more specifically. And what I mean by that is that I've noted this behavior in the MBI on a bunch of different assets, that what you'll notice is that in these transitionary periods, going between kind of bearish settings into more bullish settings, what you'll tend to see is kind of this oscillation around 0 on the MBI, kind of relatively equal oscillation, where you'll kind of come up, you'll come down, you'll come up, you'll come down. You're kind of hanging around this 0 line, maybe with just some volatility within it on the MBI. But when you see that, that's a thing that tends to happen in these kind of consolidation periods, either, just moving sideways or even in uptrends, that can then lead into the next big bullish moves up. Bitcoin shows that kind of behavior in its past. Ethereum shows that kind of behavior in its past before they went on their big bull runs. Interestingly, Quant is showing that kind of behavior right now. Now, we'll need to watch what it does right here, right? We'd like to see it continue up, poke its head back up into the green, and then red, green, etc. to see that continue. If we go down and do something like this, this might have just been an interim bull move in a broader bearish kind of move, where this is a relief rally in a bear market that rolls over. We don't want to see that. So really, with this kind of hook that we're seeing here, we'd like to see this reverse again back to the upside, get back up into the green, and then continue that oscillation. Now, even if we do show that, though, it doesn't mean that a bull run is imminent, because we're not going to see Quant, or we're unlikely to see Quant ripping to all-time highs without the broader crypto market rallying as well. And so if Quant is kind of doing this on the NBI, but the rest of the crypto market's looking bearish, I see no reason why Quant's going to go ripping to the upside. At the very least, what it might say is that if Quant might be one of the things that lead us out of the bear market, it's starting to show these bullish signs might be an early indication that maybe broader sentiment might start to return. Now, Quant is not a big enough player that I take that too seriously yet, but given how the relative strength that Quant has been showing, I think it would be worth paying attention that if it continues to show this bullishness and isn't phased by continued bearish sentiment in the broader crypto market, maybe that means there's actually some light at the end of the tunnel, not just for Quant, but maybe even the broader market as well. Who knows? That's all speculative. We'll have to wait and see. But it is just notable to watch these early strong performers and how they continue in these overall very bearish conditions. So my overall kind of outlook on Quant is that I think it's reasonable that this could end up forming kind of a bottom for Quant kind of over time. No guarantees. Obviously, we could easily take out this low and move down lower, especially depending on what happens in crypto market and also just macro markets. If we go into a deep recession, for example, then I think all bets are off in the crypto space generally. But if we don't do that, if we avoid some of the worst of that, it wouldn't shock me at all if we end up looking back at this and saying, oh, look at this bottoming structure that was forming. It was very clear we saw it coming here. And so then in the shorter term, I think we're kind of undecided. I think Quant's going to have to kind of pick a direction. And then depending on which way it goes, if it rallies, then we'll be watching the short-term UDPI to see where it might tap up. If it goes back down, we'll still watch the risk metrics, but we'll also see, can it form a higher low? That will be really important. And then can we maintain this bullish structure on the NBI? If we can, then that would still be kind of a bullish outlook. And then what I'd be looking at after that is the broader market conditions going to allow a notable rally? Because if so, it would not shock me to see Quant perform quite well. So obviously not financial advice. You make your own opinions and decisions, but that's just what I'm looking at with these data right now. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there.